Hey, good afternoon. Rob Brown here, SEC Sideline Sports, partnering up with Ronnie Sanders, AU Undercover. Man, I've been a subscriber, Ronnie, to the website for a long time. Go back to Murphy. Of course, Jason Caldwell's on our show a lot. So this is it's going to be a lot of fun. Got Brendan Martin, our executive producer. So, Ronnie, tell people about what all we're going to be simulcasting on each other's channels. We're going to get this thing going up on YouTube, X, Facebook, and every social media platform. Again, we'll go live on Tuesdays, 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 Central, 30 minutes plus as we grow this thing. But it's going to be a lot of fun because we got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to invite everybody to come on over to auburnundercover.com. We've been around, 16 years now.
Yeah.
Largest Auburn media outlet around. So a lot of page views, a lot of subscriptions. So there's actually a special running right now, 30% off. So jump on over and jump on the message board, and there's a lot of content today.
Yeah, and I'm on it all the time. I mean, it changes. You eat dinner, you come back, and Philip Marshall, we've had him on the show a lot over the years. He's one of the most respected sports writers in America. He's one of the original sky writers. I think he's been doing it a long time, and got his thoughts. Jason, Christian Clemente, Nathan King, what you do, it's going to be the place to go for Auburn. Ronnie, let's talk about this Auburn game tonight, and then there's another. They're all big, but another big one coming up Saturday. We'll get to after we talk about the Boomer Sooners coming to the Neville Tuesday night.
Well, Auburn's having obviously a terrific season. Janai Broome probably going to be along with the guy at Duke. Probably both of them have a chance to be Player of the Year. Janai Broome's had an unbelievable season, and obviously Auburn has had an unbelievable season. It's really amazing what Bruce Pearl's been able to do at Auburn. If you look at what Bruce Pearl to Auburn basketball is what Pat Dye was to Auburn football. And Jay Jacobs, former Auburn AD, was on our podcast a couple of weeks ago, and we really kind of agreed on that. We talked about that in depth, and he really, there are two people that really did a lot to change Auburn and Auburn athletics and get people to buy in. And it's pretty amazing that the basketball coach at Auburn is probably the most powerful guy on campus.
Who did you think that would ever hear that in an SEC school, right? Like,
certainly not other than Kentucky, and certainly not at Auburn. Historically, Auburn's had some ups and a few ups and a lot of downs in basketball, but this has been unprecedented, and the way he's been able to do it.
Yeah. And just the cost. I mean, if you want to get season basketball tickets to Auburn now, you are going to pay a lot, and it's competitive as any elite program in America, and it is now becoming an elite program. And as is Florida, Kentucky, Ronnie, since the rest of the SEC emphasized the importance of basketball, it's never been easy, but Kentucky doesn't own this league anymore. I don't see that changing.
I agree with you. I mean, it has been, like you said, Kentucky has owned the league, but I mean, the league is so deep now. You got, with adding Texas and Oklahoma in addition, but just look around. I mean, you've got Tennessee, you've got Florida. Ole Miss is really good. I mean, you've got, Arkansas is struggling a little bit, but even they can jump up a bit. You got John Calipari. I mean, you've got team after team after team that Alabama's ranked in the top 4. So it's Phillips' column today is talking about this is the golden era of basketball in the state of Alabama, because before Bruce Pearl got to Auburn, neither Auburn or Alabama had been to a Final Four. And since 2019, Auburn's been once and Alabama's been once.
Yeah.
And
and I think about that in the last 7 years, what has happened with those two schools, Auburn and the big rival Alabama. Every year, one of those schools has either won the regular season SEC championship, the conference tournament championship, or in a rare year, both. I don't think anybody would have given you those odds in the 10, 20 years ago. They've had their moments, but Auburn now, people get as mad after a basketball loss at Auburn as they do after a football game loss.
I can tell you, our message board blows up when, used to, it was like, okay, well, certainly during the Tony Barbie years, you come in and hey,
Mm.
let's come in and get beat and go home.
Yeah.
But and again, on the podcast last week, Jay was talking about the investment Auburn made in basketball, in the arena, in Bruce Pearl, and it was really a great interview. He talks about the way that the arena was put together. He talks about the hiring of Bruce Pearl. They closed the deal over pizza, and the first interview, he went in and talked to Bruce, and he had talked with former AD at Kentucky about Bruce. And, he said he's a great coach and this and that and the other, and he's everything you see and everything you want. He goes in up to New York. Bruce was working for ESPN, and they meet after he gets off the air. And he said it didn't go well. And he said he was subdued. He's like, he was not at all what I was expecting. Yeah. And said, he said, I really didn't, he said he was really contrite. He said he was embarrassed about what happened at Tennessee. He felt like he'd embarrassed himself and his family and the university, and really didn't feel like he had that he deserved another shot. And the next morning they got together again, and he said that was the Bruce Pearl that I was expecting. And then I guess Jay flew up, and they landed a good while outside of Knoxville. I think they were an hour away or so. And he was, they got off the plane, and somebody asked him, said, looks like you're going fishing. And he said, you could say that. He said, yeah, we're going fishing. He said, well, I hope you catch a big one, and or something to that effect. And then they're driving over, and Bruce said, hey, where are you? And I think he was 10 or 12 minutes from his house. And so at that point, he goes out, meets them, brings them back, and they close the deal over pizza. And as most people know, Coach Pearl goes out and buys the students pizza before games, and students spend the night out in the parking lot and camp out and to try to get in the game. So it's he's created a really, really neat atmosphere there. And Neville Arena has really become one of the more difficult places to play in college football. It's really become very similar to Jordan-Hare.
Yeah, and the basketball arenas are shifting more toward 8, 9, 10,000 seat venues as opposed to 15 to 20 or 25. Thompson Bowling Arena, Rupp Arena, the Hilton Center at BYU, those are the big ones. And, of course, the Carrier Dome at Syracuse. But the Duke model is what most people like. Ronnie, looking at this basketball season, the big matchup, obviously tonight, Oklahoma, but you got staring in the face at the big one, Florida. This is a clash of two giants. They played in the SEC tournament championship game last year, and Auburn won that one. But look at the standings. What do you see happening when these teams get together Saturday? Because it'll be in Auburn, but you can't hide. They're still going to be able to. You got to play it on the court.
Well, and Bruce has said, hey, look, we're going to lose some games. Yeah. The players don't seem to think so. So yeah. It's hard to beat Auburn in Auburn, whether it's in football or basketball, especially when Auburn's good. So it'll be interesting. I mean, it's going to be loud. It'll be rowdy, and like you said, I mean, it's kind of the Duke model. Auburn has invested almost $100 million in that arena just over a decade ago. And, I think there's also a story today about the basketball practice facility has been nixed for now, and they're going to focus on NIL. And, you look at what's how good they are right now, and he's clearly managed the NIL situation pretty well.
Yeah. Talking about that, people want to spend $20 million on a practice facility or a roster. That's kind of a no-brainer. And you look at what Ohio State spent in football, they got the rewards. They didn't even win their conference championship, and they didn't beat their biggest rival, Michigan. They lost for the fourth year in a row. Ronnie, y'all put out content And, we've had Jason Caldwell on the show for years. Philip Marshall's been on a number of times. Now we're collaborating on this together, focusing on, we cover all 16 schools on SEC Sideline Sports. Auburn as a specific brand is pushing somewhere between 900 million and $1 billion, according to the Wall Street Journal. How much of that is attributed to the basketball success under Bruce Pearl? Because last 4 years with football, it's been tough for Auburn. You got to think with the recruiting, it's going to get better soon. But basketball has everybody's attention.
Well, I think the thing that people have to realize is the brand itself has, Pat Dye changed a lot for Auburn. And I think people really, it's hard to grasp. It's hard to explain to people what Dye did, moving the Alabama game to Auburn in 1989. And look at Auburn prior to before Dye's hiring. Auburn had a national championship in 1957. And there's some more that Auburn should recognize for sure.
Yeah.
But one conference championship in the SEC prior to that, 1957. Dye had 4 in 1983, 87, 88, 89. And then since then, every coach at Auburn outside of Brian Harsin has had tremendous success. I mean, Terry Bowden won his first 20 games, went undefeated his first year.
Yeah.
Tommy Tuberville went undefeated and really got screwed out of a national championship, for lack of a better term. Gene Chizik, undefeated, won a conference championship, won a national championship. Malzahn, conference championship, played for a national championship. So, Harsin was a disaster, and we kept saying on the site, hey, look, this lack of leadership at the university, president, AD, all the way down, is going to be damaging, and at some point it's going to show up, and it did. And you're now seeing Hugh Freeze try to recover from that. And in the meantime, Bruce Pearl has taken Auburn basketball from the depths to heights nobody ever imagined, certainly at Auburn. And so, but the brand is bigger now than it's ever been. And if you look around, there are 6 schools that have won, from a football standpoint, that have won SEC championships since the mid '60s. And you've got Auburn, Alabama, LSU, Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, and that's it. And there's something different about Auburn. Auburn is not the flagship university. Those other 5 are. So, Auburn's a special place, and it's interesting what's going on right now. And the brand has grown, and the university has done a great job of doing that.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned a pretty prominent media figure that we both know, you a lot better than me, about Auburn recognizing they could recognize 10 national championships. I think the NCAA record book gives Auburn 5 or 6, but I had an Auburn athletic department official tell me one time, October 2013, that, well, other schools do that and they look foolish. Auburn doesn't want to do that. Well, it's branding, and it's pretty powerful to be able to say you got all that, but you start getting into a numbers game, that can be tough. Ronnie, skipping out of basketball for a second, football, football really well. You've coached it. You've been on the staff with Ron Zook, Nick Saban. You really, really know football. What do you see going on with Auburn in recruiting? Jason Caldwell calls the roster in December of 2022 the worst in his lifetime at Auburn. Let's talk about the road back.
Well, Harsin burned it to the ground, and there's no other way to put it. And when you look at, and it started with the hiring of Stephen Leith as president, and he immediately comes in and pisses everybody off, and decides that he's going to hire an athletic director, in Alan Green, but that he's going to run the football program. Well, with everything else that he did wrong, and ends up he gives Gus Malzahn the big extension, $25 million buyout, which upset pretty much everybody. And at that point, he gets run out of town, and you got an athletic director there that was that Leith never intended to run the athletic program as far as football goes.
Yeah.
He was supposed to run everything else, but Leith was going to make the big decisions. Well, all of a sudden, you've got somebody there, and it didn't work. And Leith is replaced with a former president who was on record as saying, "I don't fire coaches, I fire athletic directors." And so now you've got at this particular point in time, right now, you've got a new president, you've got a new AD, you've got a football coach with SEC experience. Now, look, there's going to be pressure. It's year 3, and this is the first time in, 60 years plus or so that Auburn's had 4 consecutive losing seasons.
Yeah.
I think Freeze is the first coach to survive 2 consecutive losing seasons since Barfield or something. I think Barfield had 2, or maybe not. Maybe it was before Suge, or I'm sorry, maybe it was Suge. But in any case, it had been a long time. So you really, this would be his 3rd consecutive losing season if that were to happen. There's going to be some pressure, but they've got really, really good players. You've got 4 quarterbacks in the room now that were not on campus last year. You've got a really talented room full of receivers, and they're pretty well, they're stacked at a lot of different positions. Are there weaknesses? Sure. But typically also in this state, Nick Saban's not coaching Alabama anymore. And, as you know, in this state, football rules, and there used to be football rules. It's football, it's basketball. There's competition in this state now at every level, whether it's football, it's basketball. It doesn't matter what sport it is. Obviously, football still rules, but from an academic standpoint, there's competition all the way across the map as far as these 2 schools go.
Yeah, and you talked about the late 40s after World War II. Auburn football was as bleak a future. It had no future. And then, Suge Jordan comes in, changed all that. And then you think about the season Gene Chizik had in 2012. The next year, Auburn's playing for the national championship. But Brian Harsin, the Talking Heads, knew what they were talking about when they wrote that song, "Burning Down the House." That he was arguably, you have to combine Tony Barbie, Brian Harsin, Sonny Galloway, the worst coaching hires in Auburn history. Earl Brown, my dad was in school at that time at Auburn, said he was a fine, good-looking man, gentleman. I think a Notre Dame man, looked like a Hollywood actor. But he went 0-10 and lost to Wofford. Right now, you talked about the big 6 brands: Auburn, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, LSU. In terms of since the 63 season, those are the only 6 teams to win the SEC. Texas came close in their first year.
They did.
You feel like it's harder for Auburn now that Texas and OU are in, or is it a jump ball at this point?
Texas has a lot of money, which makes it, in this environment, Ohio State, Ohio State bought a national championship. Well, they had the highest payroll in college football. But, you've got to think at some point there's going to be, how that looks. The House settlement's obviously got to get approved first. How that looks, where it goes, who knows? There's a lot of uncertainty in college athletics right now. But does it make it harder? Well, with a 12-team playoff, you've got to get hot, and you can start out great. A friend of mine, Ron Zook, was the head coach at Illinois, and his last year at Illinois, they started out, they won their first 6, ranked in the top 10, I believe, and ended the season 0-6 and got fired. So, that can happen. But if you start out slow and, you drop a couple, now it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
Now you get hot at the end of the year and you go beat Georgia, you go beat Alabama, you go beat Oklahoma or something, you jump in and you're in the top 12. So, does it, from a conference championship standpoint, I think you've just got to be playing well, now, is it harder with that many schools? Sure. But Auburn's schedule is not going to be any harder than it's always been.
Yeah.
In fact, if you look around, Auburn dropped LSU this past year and picked up Oklahoma. So you only play 12 games, and Auburn typically plays one of the top 2 or 3 toughest schedules in the conference, and usually one of the top 4 or 5 in the country. So, I don't think the schedule gets any harder. It's just can you finish in the top two? You're not in divisions anymore. Can you finish with one of the two best records in the conference? And if you're in the top 4 or 5 in the conference, I mean, you're going to have a chance to be in the playoff.
Yeah. Back to basketball, and good point. Our producer Brendan bringing up. How big is this game on Saturday? What does Auburn have to do against Florida? Because I think you'll say it, Jason will say it. It's the height. With and I don't know if Handblotten's going to play or not, but even without him, they've got 4 of the tallest players in basketball. That's 20 big fouls they can give up. What's Auburn's worst nightmare in terms of matchup on game day against a team like Florida?
I'm not a basketball expert, so I'll leave that to you, Rob. But I do think that Janai Broome being healthy, staying healthy, the sprained ankle and being out a couple 3 games, whatever it was, maybe 4, was a big deal. But him being back for Tennessee he's been back-to-back player of the week last 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. He needs to stay healthy and play well. But Auburn's got a deep bench. I mean, they got a bunch of guys who can play basketball, and it should be a lot of fun. For Florida, I mean, the crowd noise, as loud as it was at Neville Arena, didn't bother. It didn't seem to bother Tennessee too much. No. They handled it, but they're mature. Their coach has been around. He knows what he's doing, obviously. But will the noise bother Florida? If it does, that's a problem. If they can handle the noise, they're a really good team. And like I said earlier, I mean, Pearl has said, hey, we're going to lose some games. The players don't seem to buy into that. They think they're going to win them all. And so far, for the most part, outside of the close loss to Duke, that's been the case.
Well, looks like Rob is frozen in time. Oh, there he is. Robert. He is. Hey, how are you? Okay. We have the satellite out there, and he's in a remote location like a CIA agent. Rob, you back with us?
Yeah.
Starlink. I just wanted to throw in the Bruce Pearl, Todd Golden, Bruce Pearl connection, which I just kind of learned of. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you knew about that, Ronnie. You know a thing or two about coaches.
Oh, yeah.
Sure. Todd Golden is actually really close to the Pearl family. They've known each other for a long time and are really close. So it'll be a fun game for the Pearls.
And speaking of that, I mean, this basketball season, last year we thought the SEC was the best that we could remember. It didn't pan out that way, although Alabama did get to the Final Four. Auburn gets knocked out 79-78 to Yale in the first round. That made all the talking heads on TV so happy. Bruce Pearl they tried to make him a villain. A lot of the national talking head pundits, whatever the hell you call them. But the guy you're right. He's done for Auburn basketball what Nick Saban did for Alabama football. And his son maybe takes over when he steps down. Hopefully that's a long time from now. Do you get the feeling Bruce Pearl has got a lot of gas left in his tank?
I think so. He has said on multiple occasions, hey, look, I've liked everywhere I've coached. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But Auburn's the best place I've been. And he loves it there. I think his family loves it there. Unless something changes, I would expect that Stephen will probably be the next basketball coach at Auburn. But I think that as long as Bruce is healthy and enjoying coaching, I mean, I can't speak for him, but he looks to me like he's having a lot of fun, and I know Auburn people are certainly having a lot of fun. So and he's, I think, the third or fourth highest paid basketball coach in the country. So the old Bobby Louder saying, look, pay him whatever you want to pay him. Just don't make it so you can't fire him. Not that Bruce Pearl's getting fired, but in other words, let's not do a Jimbo Fisher deal, or let's not, at that point, let's not do Auburn was king of buyouts with Tuberville and Chiswick and Malzahn and Harsin and on and on. So At this point, not that I expect Freeze to get fired, because I don't. I expect they'll have a pretty good season, but his buyout is much more manageable compared to others around the conference. Yeah. But you look at Brian Kelly's buyout at LSU, it's unbelievable. And, I think it's big.
I need a buyout. I want to buy out. I need one of these buyouts that I get paid for the rest of my life, millions of dollars. Hey, predictions tonight. You got Oklahoma up, and then Florida this Saturday. Ronnie, what's it look like? Is Auburn continued dominance, or?
I think Auburn takes care of Oklahoma. I think the Florida game will be really interesting. I think Auburn wins, but I think it's close, and I think it could go either way. But I think Florida's a really good team.
Yeah,
Rob.
And Oklahoma can shoot. They're not the greatest rebounding team. Auburn's not the tallest team in the league, but they're really good at rebounding. You put Dylan Cardwell, and Janai Broome. They're just two of the best. They push. You can see they play a full 40, and they are so intense. And then against Florida, I'll give Auburn the win, but I think it's going to come down to the battle of the big guys up there. Florida's got a lot of fouls to give, but I see Auburn getting the win. Auburn has had a terrible run at the O-Dome. They finally broke that streak, 2 or 3 years ago against Florida in the Neville. But I'm looking for Auburn to get the win against the Gators. And Ronnie, another quick.
Well, I know Hanglotten's not going to play, Rob. That guy's out for a minute.
He's out for the. You said he's not.
They don't know for the year, but he ain't playing anytime soon, and we'll see if they're going to bring him back. But we'll see what Florida team shows up, because if Florida's going to go, lay an egg at 64-44 like they did against Tennessee, that's a whole different team. You're going to lose some games, though, and you're going to have some off games in basketball. So, Florida fans, calm down. I think that Florida will get up for that game, and the O-Dome is pretty exciting. I think they'll take care of Oklahoma tonight. That's for sure.
Yeah. Ronnie, one last thing. We'll work together. Love covering Auburn. That is my school. In the interest of full disclosure, I'm a graduate. My dad is. My middle son is. Got a ton of our friends' kids down there. I think you can build. Winning is contagious, isn't it? So hopefully the football program, they start practice, March 25th, spring
it's
practice?
Later this year. I don't remember the exact date, but it's later this year than it has been. So,
the Rainbows started yesterday, Rob, by the way. And spring practice in Hawaii started yesterday. They still
somebody did
for the first of the year every year. So go Bows,
February 3rd. Okay, you're talking 7 days after the national championship game, Ronnie. That's hard to believe.
Something that I thought was really interesting this past week was head coach at Nebraska came out and said, hey, we may not have a spring game this year because we don't want to give other teams a chance to see their players because they lost so many to the portal after last spring. I think you're going to see more of that happening. I really do. Wow. I think that in this environment, that whatever rules there are, very few of them are enforced. And even if they are, somebody's getting sued. So, hey, go jump in the lake. We don't care. So it's going to be interesting.
You guys are going to get the lockdown that we got at Florida, because we got Billy Napier came in. That was it. Like nothing, no more. We get no access, no looks, no spring practice. We get it's a la Alabama Nick Saban style. So strap in, because the content gets lean, but you don't get a lot of information. I'll tell you that.
A lot of speculation, Ronnie.
Well,
I heard it from a friend who heard it from a friend.
Freeze has been pretty good from that standpoint. We've got pretty good relationships with the staff, but as far as there aren't many open practices for certainly for fans and people that are outside the circle that aren't trustworthy. They're certainly not getting in, and so I think the press on some days gets a chance to come in and do a little video, take a few photos, but it's limited. It's not like it was.
Yeah. It really is. And then the way fans contribute, brick and mortar is kind of almost a thing of the past now. It's get me that guy, that girl that can come in and win right away. So looking forward to covering Auburn with you, because there is never a dull moment, man. AU Undercover, your website, it's nonstop. You can wake up at 3 a.m. if there's a story breaking. It's going to be on y'all's site. That y'all got a hardcore group of people there, and if you follow Auburn, you've got to be dialed in to AU Undercover. And then we do it Monday through Friday. SEC Sideline Sports, trying to cover all 16 schools. That's a lot of fun. And you think about your brand, Rodney. I mean, Ronnie, you've been doing it 16 years. You've watched this business grow. Kind of just take us out in today's show with where you see media going forward, how people consume, because you got kids, I got kids. They consume a lot of stuff on this guy.
Well, it's nonstop. And, I look around and my son's phone went down a while ago, and he thinks it's the end of the world.
Oh, they won't leave the house. They won't leave the house with it.
No, it's a different,
bedridden.
It's a different generation, but everything's going this way. I mean, you look at people, and you look at our politics, whichever side you're on, but people watch what they want to watch, and the same thing goes for sports. And so there was I had three channels growing up. You had CBS, NBC, ABC, and then Fox finally came along, and but that's all we had. And then it was ESPN, and then now you've got whatever you want. But everything's broken down, everything's segmented, and there's going to be a lot more podcasts like this, and we hope to continue to grow it, and hopefully we put out some things that people like. But
heck yeah.
Yeah, and we'll do it again next Tuesday, folks. Same time, 5 Eastern, 4 Central. And if you're out west, 2 p.m.
Yeah, out in Colorado, we're like my pals out in Colorado. It's 3 hours, whatever that is. They're always behind out there.
And they watch it. But Ronnie, you're right. I mean, my kids consume it. It's on this and iPads, laptops, what have you. So we can reach you on every platform out there. So this is going to be a lot of fun, man. What a cool partnership, Ronnie, because Auburn and your team know Auburn better than anybody undercover. So
enjoyed it, guys.
Thank you.